Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast, everybody. Today, Melissa and I are here with Candisse. Candisse, when I first saw your face coming up on the Instagram page of what is now 3WB, Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellbeing, I knew that I knew your face, and I couldn't remember why. It took me for the longest time, but I grew up in High River, and I remember seeing you around town all the time, but I never knew who you were. And then Melissa was like, oh, this is Candisse, like, especially when we were at your event and everything like that. I'm like, it's crazy to me. It's a small world for me, like, that I grew up seeing you around town, never knew who you were, and here we are right now.
And blocks away from each other, I might add.
Really?
Yes, because Candisse, you live across the street from where I used to live. Sammy, you were like very close.
Oh, that's really funny. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't talk about where Candisse lives on the podcast.
No.
People probably can just Google and find her like, if they really want to. I'm going to encourage you to bring money if you're going to come. How about that?
I love bring money. I like it. Anyways, Candisse's signature statement is like, you can do it. You can do it. And obviously her name being Candisse, she's got a whole bunch of projects on the go right now. Number one, like I mentioned, she works with the Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellbeing, which is creating community and helping people focus on whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, more abundance in different areas of their lives, putting on speaking events and such. She also has merchandise that's all branded with the Can Do effect, if that's something, and a lot of that money goes towards fundraising that Candisse is doing for many different things that we'll get her to speak about. And she also is currently working on a career in motivational speaking, talking a lot about inclusivity in schoolrooms and other places like that, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Candisse. Before we started recording, we chatted a little bit about where we wanted to focus on our conversation today. And you had mentioned, obviously, not to undermine any value that is out there that's being created in awareness around things for helping babies and helping kids, but that as an adult living with spinal muscular atrophy, you kind of feel a little left out in a lot of ways. It's harder to access things for you than it is for people under a certain age. So I want to jump in talking about that right now, right off the bat with you, Candisse. Like, what do you see that affects for you? Where are the things that are limitations for you, and what differences would you like to see changed in that for you?
Yeah. I feel like it can also be a can of worms that we're opening right now, so I'll try to stay focused because I have a lot of thoughts about it, but maybe just to give a little bit of a background. So I was diagnosed at about 15 months old. My parents were told that I wouldn't live to see my 5th birthday, and so basically, like, take me home, love me, and live the best life that I can for the next few years. And that was kind of all that they were really told. And at that time, there was no cures, there was no treatments. It was basically like a death sentence to be diagnosed with SMA. I was also the 6th kid in Canada that was diagnosed with SMA. And so really it was like, nobody knew what they were doing. Like, the doctors are smart, but like, it was still like a really big guessing game. And so as I grew up, I was very involved in like the muscular dystrophy community and things like that. And my parents were supported and all of that. And then kind of will fast forward, I'm now 41. So definitely outlived that expiry date that they so lovingly gave me. And as I've gone through life, I feel like as a young child and a teenager, and even in my early adult life, there was kind of like always this like lingering feeling like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. And you didn't really like plan for the future, really. So now that I'm an adult and I'm 40, there's days where I'm like, I probably should have maybe done a little bit more planning with my life. But I think it comes from the fact that there's just not a lot of attention shown upon the adult community, because in all reality, and not to sound like morbid or anything, there's not a lot of us that make it to the age of 40. And so for me, I think part of my like mission and now kind of goal and purpose in life is just to show that like, yes, we may be diagnosed with these diseases that don't have a long outlook on life, but we are living past those like death sentences is what I call them. And in doing that, we need to like kind of like change the topics around it. And it's not just about saving the babies and helping the little kids live their best lives, because those babies are now getting treatment and they're thriving and they're walking. But now let's make sure that we're doing the same thing for adults, because there are treatments on the market now. Unfortunately, in Canada, especially out Alberta, there's age brackets on that, which I far exceed. So I think one of the treatments you have to be 18 or under, and the other treatment it was 21. I believe it was 21. It might have been 25 or younger to even like be considered to be given access to those medications that can literally put our progression of our SMA in like kind of like remission, so it's not progressing, or see improvements that of the abilities that we lost. So I think for me, it's just about not forgetting about the adults that are living long lives.
Yeah, and I feel like obviously I don't want to speak this at you, Candice, because I don't know, but like I feel like what's part of what's missing is like how much can be learned from the adults who have lived these ages that they never thought they were going to live to. So like if we give them more life, like we can learn so much more about what's going to happen with these children and babies and how they're going to grow, like, so we're missing a piece here if we don't take care of them as well.
Totally. I totally agree. Like, I worked for about 5 years, I think, for Muscular Dystrophy Canada. When I took that job, I was running this like youth program, and I would meet these youth, and they'd have all different types of muscular dystrophy, but they were like, they were telling me like they didn't have friends and they didn't have a social life. And I'm like, I live in a little rural town of Alberta and I have friends in a social life. What do you mean you don't have friends in a social life? But it's because their parents were like kind of scared to let them go do, because they didn't want to like put them in danger or have something happen or for them to get sick. Because like getting like an average cold is a scary thing for someone with SMA. It can go from like your average cold to like a ICU stay because of pneumonia real fast. And so that's scary. But like, I think by learning and sharing with adults, like we can show you that like, yes, there's some scary times that we've had in our lives, but we are thriving, and there's tips and tricks that we can help to make your life easier that we've figured out along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know if you have an answer to this question, but and it might be a really like can of worms to open here, but if you could see like if you in your mind, obviously I know there's so much behind this that we don't know, but in your mind, like what should it look like for people to be able to access medication and help regardless of age? Like what would that look like to you?
This is probably going to sound like really simple and kind of old school, but like I wish that we could kind of go back to the day where I'm like, can I just sign the waiver to say if I'm going to grow a third arm, like it's a risk I'm willing to take? Like, can we take back that ownership? Because I think we live in a society now where like everybody's worried about suing somebody. And because of that, it's like all this red tape and paperwork. And then people are missing out. Like these drug companies have spent millions and millions of dollars and come through with this major breakthrough. And now because of political red tape, we're not able to access it because of age. And if I'm being real blunt, I guess, we're never going to be able to change that policy or to like change the access to that unless we can change policy at like a government level. Basically right now, the way it works is places like Health Canada and Candisse have guidelines and regulations when it comes to clinical trials. And so SMA falls into the rare disease category. And rare disease to me means it's a really sucky place to be, because no matter what, we're as a rare disease as a whole, so babies to however old people are in this, we don't hit the numbers that are needed for these people, the powers that be, to approve the medication. So right now, the reason why the medications that are on the market have been approved to that specific this specific age group of people is because there's been just enough people in a clinical trial to qualify that drug to get approved. So when you open up the window of like people over the age of 25 to my age of 40, we're never going to get it. Not even if we took all the people in the world. And that means every person in the world that's my age or to 25 has to be willing to go and take the clinical trial and see what comes of it. And so there's just like, it's always like a bigger picture, I feel like bigger level. And so that's where I would start. I think like, why can't we just take the onus back on ourselves? And if I am of capable mind, why can I not just say, I want to take this and have the right to take it?
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
cow.
I feel like that's a can of worms conversation we could go down that we maybe won't. In just that topic of the ownership that we're missing, right? There is so much ownership missing in the world, and I won't open that can of worms because I could rant about it too in a different way. But
Totally.
Yeah, Melissa, do you have anything you want to ask?
I've been watching your stories. I've been watching your reels. We watch you on social media. We know you. I've been so looking forward to this conversation because you just explained, like you just answered a whole list of questions I had that I wanted to ask you in that one. That blows my mind. And to hear it like that is like, holy, wow. So you've been fighting for that treatment. And do you did I understand that right? Have you got it now?
Yeah. So, beginning of this year, I decided I'm tired of waiting. Normally I'm a pretty patient person. So these drugs have been out on the market now, I think between 5 and 7 years. And I was like this very patient person. I was like, just give it time. And once people get on it and they see all the good things, they'll make the choice to let us all go on it, is kind of what I was thinking. Fast forward 5 years. Over the last 5 years, I've just like consistently and probably like honestly, for like the first time in my life, I was really, really noticing a loss of ability. And so from simple things like doing my hair and makeup, like I used to do my own hair and makeup, and now I can't do that. I need people to help me. In the last like 6 to 8 months, probably like the task of just like feeding myself. So lifting your fork to your mouth repetitively was becoming a tiring task. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm not waiting anymore. And so, to be honest, I didn't think it was going to be a fight. I just thought like, okay, maybe if I just go to my doctors and tell them that I want to go on this, like I can get like a special access or something. And it wasn't not that easy. And so the beginning of the year, I met with our MLA and she was fantastic. I think she played a huge role in this. She's also got like a nursing background, so I also think that helped me a little bit. And so I met with her, shared my story, drove to Claire's home in a snowstorm. That's how dedicated I was to making this happen, and shared it. And then it's always like a hurry up and wait kind of scenario. So a month went by. She got back to me because there was a lot of questions that I had about funds that I knew were available and policies that I could find the loophole in and things like that. And so she found the answers, basically told me to put together a package and she would get it handed to our health minister, kind of top of the pile. So I'm not going to get buried in her workload. And thankfully through that process, I received a letter from the health minister stating that I was granted a 1-year exceptional coverage is what they called it, for risdiplam, which is like the oral medication treatment that's on the market for SMA. So it was a very exciting day. There was like a part of me that just thought I was going to have to fight for this for a long time. And then, again, I don't want to sound like a negative person, but then there was like this realization where I was like, why did I only get 1 year? Because this medication is a medication that I have to take every day for the rest of my life. And right now the cost of that is $1,000 a day. So I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody that can afford that right now. So then when I got to talk to a few people, I found out that through all my work and efforts to see if I could find some way to get on treatment, I came across an opportunity to potentially go into a clinical trial down in the States for a different treatment. But the number one protocol was that I was on 6 months of this risdiplam oral treatment. And so in my plea to the health minister, I did include that. And so right now I'm on the treatment. I started it on June 28th. So today marks 3 weeks that we've been on it. But it gave me like a little bit of breathing room, but I know that I'm going to have to continue to like basically prove myself, because I was only given the 1-year treatment because of the clinical trial opportunity. So that is still a big what if. I have to wait 6 months to see if I even am considered to come into it, because that's hurdle number 1 with that. And so again, it just goes back into like the government policies that we need to change. And again, for adults, because if I was 25 and younger, none of this would be happening right now. So yeah, so it's like a blessing in disguise with a little bit of a dark shadow hanging over it, because I don't know what's to come after that.
Wow. Holy smokes, that is unreal, Candice. Have you noticed any difference in that 3 weeks?
So it's kind of funny. I was just talking to one of my friends this morning, and I was like, everybody's been asking me, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Like, am I supposed to feel anything? And like from the research that I've read about it, it takes 4 to 4 weeks to get it in for it to like register in your bloodstream. So I'm like, so I'm probably not. But I also, if you've been following me, you might have seen me talk about stories about how one of my biggest frustrations has been my tired arm days. So like there would be days that I would wake up and I had a good night's sleep, but my arms felt like they weighed like 500 pounds. And like for me, my arms are my sense of freedom. Like they're what I do everything with. They're how I drive my wheelchair and go about my day. So having those days where it was like more extra effort to lift them was really frustrating. And so I will probably have those like at least once a week, if not 2-3 times a week, depending on what I was doing. And since I've started it, I don't feel like I've had those days. So I was like, I don't know, maybe it's like a placebo effect, but whatever, I'll take it.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, I'm not saying it is placebo effect, but sometimes I think it's so funny how we like discredit placebo effect. But I'm like, but if it's working, like,
exactly,
does it matter? You know?
No, exactly.
No.
That's exactly what. But there is a part of me where I'm like, am I losing my mind? But even if I am, I'll take it.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
So maybe this might sound like an obvious question, but then, so are you saying that the kids that are 25 and under, 18 and under, they are just automatically getting this treatment now?
Yeah. So it's a little different province by province.
Okay.
In Quebec, you can just get it. It doesn't matter what age you are. We're giving it to everybody.
What?
And then in BC, Saskatchewan, and I believe Manitoba, I'm not quite sure about like the rest of the provinces. They do it on like a case-by-case basis. So if you're like 25 or younger, you get it. And if you're over, they're doing case-by-case. And so, yeah, just Alberta, I like to put in this weird little.
Wow. So basically when you're saying this needs to change on like a government level, you're talking provincial government level to start.
Yes, that would be a big step. Like if Alberta would just adopt the model of like the case by case basis, so that those of us that are over the age of 25 that want to take it, that we can do whatever that might look like. I'm assuming it's like a series of testing and then talking with doctors, and you probably have to talk to a panel of people to see if they feel like it would suit you. That would be great.
Holy cow.
Then we gotta go federally so that they just make it approved across the board. And yeah.
So basically, like if I'm understanding you right, the reason they're not just giving it is because they're saying they don't want to be liable if they give you the medication, Candice, and something goes on and you get some weird side effect. They're covering their ass from being sued. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, basically.
That's all it's about. Like the medicine is there.
Because there's no proof, according to clinical trials, that it works in adults over the age of 25. And the real kicker with that is there are adults on this medication over the age of 25. I don't know how closely they're being followed, but like even when I got this approval, I was like, I will do whatever test. If you watched my stories the other day, I did a really weird one the other day. I'll do whatever test that you want me to do to help get an understanding of how this does work in adults, because I get it, like rare disease, low number of people on it, I get it. But if nobody's on it, we'll never have any proof. And then to just, they call that in like the world of research and all that is called real world evidence. And so, but like Candisse and Health Canada don't accept real world evidence as fact, I guess. Yeah.
My favorite is watching, I was gonna say, my favorite is watching Melissa react to like medical information that she doesn't know. Like, she doesn't know about certain red tape things. She's like, what? And I'm like, it's so funny. You don't know these things.
And like it's not that shocking to, like, it's not shocking to see your reactions or hear your reactions, because I think like living in Canada, everybody's like, oh, you live in Canada, your healthcare is phenomenal. And like, for the most part, it's very good. We don't have to usually struggle to see it. But when it comes to like medication that costs $1,000 a day, there's a lot more to it. And it's not just freely handed out. And that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down.
Yeah.
I think I react like that because I'm like, okay, when I put my like understanding government brain on, like it doesn't surprise me that it doesn't totally surprise me. What surprises me is it just shouldn't be like that. Like, it just surprises me that it even is like that it even is fathomable, that you're sitting there saying, I'm putting my hands up. I want to do this. I want to take this medication. I'm willing to take the liability for it. And you still have to jump through all of these hoops. That's what blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind. Unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me in the sense of like governments work like that. It blows my mind because it just shouldn't be like that. Mm-hmm. Like on a like person to person level,
on like a humanity level.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay. Can we switch gears and talk about, because you're like, man, you do so much, and you're such an advocate, and you're an inspiration, really, to watch doing all the things that you do. I want to hear about the Can Do line that you're doing, and what is it benefiting?
Yeah. So it kind of was born out of this over the last couple of years of my life. So I was an event planner for 10 years. And as my SMA was progressing, I was noticing that job was becoming harder and harder to do effectively and successfully and all that. And so I closed down my business, had this year of like, poor Candisse, I can't do anything anymore. And then I started like going to events and meeting people like you guys and having people tell me that my story is inspirational and what I'm doing is inspirational, which is also like this. Inspirational is like a weird thing in the disability community, because like for me, I'm like, I'm just living my life. Like I didn't do anything different than anybody else. I just do it from a wheelchair. And so it's a little bit of a mind shift. And so I had to kind of get my head wrapped around that. And then through that, I decided, like, I think people were like, I want to hear your message. And would you speak at this thing and share your story? Because I think it is like inspirational and motivational that you have done all of the things that you've done with your disease and from a wheelchair. And so that's when I started working towards this goal of being a motivational speaker. And also, like, I would love to get into like businesses and schools to teach about like inclusivity and like accessibility and all these different things. And then I just grew up, my parents were really good about instilling in me that like I would ask them if I could do certain things. There was obviously this air of like unsureness of like what I could do in a wheelchair. And my parents were very much people that were like, well, you just gotta try and see if you can do it, like figure out a way to do it. And so like I sometimes feel like when I say this, people might think I'm a little bit delusional, but I feel like I just did things like anybody else could. And then if I couldn't do it, I didn't feel like it was because of my disability. So like, there are some people that are good at hockey and there's some people that aren't. I just fell into that same category. I didn't think like, oh, I'm not good at this because of my disability or because I'm in a wheelchair. And so I just have learned all my life, like, you can do what you set your mind to. For me, I've always had to like figure out ways around it. My family used to like tease me and call me MacGyver. That's probably like an old school reference for some people. But like my parents would come home sometimes and I would have like wooden spoons or spatulas like taped together because I dropped something on the floor and couldn't pick it up. And so I'd stick tape and then I'd like make my own little poker thing to like pick it up. And then I wouldn't like untape it on. I would just leave it on the counter. And they'd be like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, I dropped a thing today and I needed to pick it up. And they're like, how did you come up with that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just did it. Right. So like, I've always just figured out ways. And then I was fighting for treatment and at a point where I was like, how am I going to raise this kind of money? Because it's an outrageous amount of money. And so somebody approached me and they were like, let's make you an apparel line. And I was like, oh, that seems very overwhelming, to be honest. And I was like, I don't know, what would it be and how would I do it and whatnot. And so then kind of just like, I guess Taylor Swift and all the eras are very popular right now. And somebody said it to me, like, you're kind of in your can-do era. And I was like, okay, I think we have some merch line with it because that's exactly how I've just like lived my whole life is in that era. So yeah. And so we created the shirts. I have t-shirts and sweatshirts. You can find them on my website. And my goal with that is like people are going to buy them. And when they wear them, they can feel like confident or know like whatever they're trying to do. So maybe it's just like, I have a couple different friends that have got them. So like my cousin, she was doing this squat challenge and every day she had to add 10 more squats. And she did this story one day and she was like, I don't know, maybe I won't be able to make it. And I was like, you can do it if you set your mind to it. Maybe you should put your shirt on. And so now she like does her squats in her shirt. You know, like when you're struggling to get out and run a marathon or go to the gym, I'm like, just you have the ability to choose to just like get up and go and do it. And so that's what I hope that the shirts inspire. And then portions of the sales go towards my fundraising efforts because I'm just going to continue to stockpile that because there's probably a fight coming again in a year from now. But then also just to help me get out there and advocate for adults with SMA because although I'm on treatment now, there's many of us out there that are not getting that same right to access it. So motivational, helps a good cause, serves a purpose. And I think it's a pretty cool shirt.
Yeah.
They're very cool shirts. I love them.
Thank you.
I love them. So cool.
I want to say this, Candice, because you were saying like, I don't know, I'm just living my life. Like, I don't know what's inspirational about it. I'm just doing what I do. And I think the thing is when you're someone without a disability and you choose to just live that way, people find it inspiring. And so I think, and I hope this comes across in the right way, I think that people in their own mind create, as soon as they have a hurdle, they're like, oh, I can't do that. One small hurdle, oh, I can't do it. And so when they see someone who has a can-do attitude and has a hurdle that they don't have, they're like, oh, it's more shocking to them, right? So I just want to commend that because the attitude alone, aside from living with a disability, the attitude alone is inspirational to people. And it would be the same way. I think people would say the same thing to you, even if you didn't live with SMA because of your attitude. So I just want to say that because it is, you meet people who are not can-do people and you're like, oh, I see why I'm inspiring to you now. Okay.
Fair.
So your attitude alone is inspiring, let alone everything else. So I just want to say that, like, yeah, it is an incredible way because when you live that way, you don't see how else you can live. But then when you see that, when you meet people who don't live that way, you're like, Oh, okay. Everything's a hurdle to you. Got it. Hurdles you're not going over. Cool. All right. Got it. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. So thank you for that.
you're welcome.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Sammy. I was thinking that too the whole time. I was like, how do I put that? And you just so eloquently.
I'm glad it was eloquent. It found messy on my end. No. I want to ask Candisse, do you know, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but do you happen to know what it was like for your parents, and even for you, being told, oh, she's only going to live for a very short period of time, and every year that goes by, you're still living a great life? Like, do you know, number one, what that was like for your parents, and number two, what that's like for you? You kind of alluded to it earlier in realizing, like, oh, I can plan for a future. But, like, what's that been like for you living through your life and planning for a future?
Yeah, so I can speak like a little bit for my parents. So, like in the beginning, it took a bit for them to get connected to the right communities and things like that. But they were just like, okay, we're going to give her the best life that we can give her for however long we have her. And I don't think that they really heavily focused on that like 5-year mark or anything. And so like, I know my parents like spent their savings that they were saving for a house back in the day on like my first wheelchair, because they didn't realize there was funding. And back then, like wheelchairs were like 10 grand. They're the price of a small car right now. So yeah, and so I think like it affected them that way. But again, I don't ever remember them being like hyper focused on, okay, we only have her for 5 years. And then I think as I aged and continued to pass that, like, one, I've been a big birthday celebrator. Like my parties are a little over the top 90% of the time. I think I got that because I think my parents instilled that. I always had big birthday parties because it was like, yay, she's here another year and whatnot. But then I think like the downside of that is they didn't like plan for me to be alive to go to college, or as my wheelchairs got bigger and wasn't like able for them to lift into our vehicle, they didn't plan for like expensive wheelchair vans or ramps in our home and things like that. And so that is kind of like part of my like why I want to share my story is like just plan for it, because wouldn't you rather be planned, have like tens of thousands of dollars sitting for education or a home modification or whatever that might look like, and then if you don't need it, it'll go towards something else. But like if you do need it, you're prepared for it, because I think it's just, although they do their best to tell it, like be on the top of how our disease progresses and what to expect, they truly don't know. Even I think like some of my friends that I think are on the podcast this month too, like we all kind of have, we do have the same diagnosis. So we have SMA, a bunch of us have SMA type 2, but we're also different. So like, you can't just follow what the books say, the scientific books say. And so I think it's just been, it was interesting. Because I think even when I got to high school, people were like talking about, what do you want to do when you grow up? I was like, I don't know. Much farther than this. Like, it was a weird thing. I really, truly didn't. And then once I got out of school, I think that was like another level of realization of like not planning for your future, because, and again, why I want to work with businesses to be inclusive. I didn't just get to go out and get a regular summer job at Dairy Queen or McDonald's or whatever. And so I always tell people, like, I feel like I was like forced into being an entrepreneur, because I feel like my job choices were to become a graphic designer because I could work on a computer, or what else was there, right? They were all, every job is, there's a physical factor to it. And at that point in my life where I was like in my early 20s, I was like, no, I'm not going to do the basic job that's been given to me. If I'm going to go into being an entrepreneur, I'm going to do something crazy. And that's when I became an event planner, because most people probably were like, what is she doing? Like, how is she going to plan a party and get it decorated and get all these people where they need to be and whatever? But I did it. And every person that I planned an event or a wedding or a party for was like, wow, you really get around and get stuff done. I was like, yeah, like I just refused to kind of accept the fact that I had to have a desk job. And so that's kind of been like another thing where I'm like, if you want to be something, I don't know, you want to be like a mechanic, there's like robots that can do stuff for you now. Figure out a way to do it. Like, you don't have to be put in this box of disabled person jobs, so to speak.
That's a really good message to share, Candisse. A really good message, because I feel like very many people will, just like we said before, take the card that's handed to them and be like, okay, I guess this is what I get. Mm-hmm. Instead of being like, nope, I can do something else if I want to.
Yeah.
So
like, I know there's some girls now that are just in their early teaching careers. I'm like, how cool would it have been to see a teacher in a wheelchair? Like, talk about disability representation at its finest. Like, you're going to be teaching young minds that you can still be whatever you want to be. And so I think like to see people in those kind of roles is really powerful, but also just like out like in public doing the everyday jobs that everybody does. There's ways around it. And businesses just need to be a little bit more willing, because like I said before, like a simple cold can knock us out for longer than most, or we can't just power through and do our day sometimes. So that's like where the inclusion and disability representation in businesses needs a little bit of work, but it's nothing crazy. I promise it's not hard.
Yeah. When we were talking to Tori, she said it much nicer than this, but she said some derivative of accessibility benefits everybody. She's like, it doesn't take away from anybody. And every time I see a ramp, like I've always been like, oh, like, great, this ramp is here. I can use my stroller. I can take my bike. But I think of that conversation now every single time. I'm like, yeah, this wasn't built for me on a bike. This wasn't built for me on a stroller. This was built for someone in a wheelchair, but it's benefiting me.
Mm-hmm. I know. And that, I think like that alone is one of the most powerful messages, and it gets completely overlooked. I like that button on like the push to open button that's supposed to be on most buildings. Like, that button to some people seems like, man, we don't need it. Like, we'll just watch for somebody to come to our door. But I'm like, it's not just for me, the girl in the wheelchair. It's for like the grandma and grandpa with a walker, the mom with a stroller and a runaway toddler, like a teenage boy that broke his leg playing hockey. Like, it's not just for people in wheelchairs. Like, it's a thing that helps society as a whole. And it's wild to me. Like, I shared a reel. I'll try to see if I can pin it somehow on my actual story, or I'll duet it or something, however that works. But she was talking about like in the US, there's like ADA, so like the American Disabilities Act. And so in the States, like there are laws about accessibility and how to make businesses and places accessible in public spaces. And there are laws, and if they're broken, there's fines and that kind of thing. But in Canada, we don't have that. And I think that's why it's overlooked so much. So they're like recommendations, but there's no like law. Like, if your building is a public space, the very minimum that you can have is a push to open button. There is no law that says that. And that's how it gets overlooked.
You're right. It does need to be a law. That's my husband says it all the time. He's like, there needs to be laws, because if it's just a suggestion, people don't do it. And if it needs to benefit people, and this is in all areas of topics, not specific, but he's like, if it's not a law, people will just find a way around it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It should be a law. I mean, and even like sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and like I said, like, it's, to me, like, yes, it might be a bit of a cost factor to put that button in and get the door. Like, I have a wheelchair accessible door on my house. It took me 40 years to get it, and to have this pivotal realization of like, I can't get out of my house on my own anymore. And so then through like Love for Lewiston, they funded me this door, and it's like game changer. You probably can drive by my house now that some of you know where I live, and see me out on my front deck, because I'm just out there all the time, because I don't have to like inconvenience somebody to open the door, and then inconvenience them to let me back in when I'm too hot or whatever. So like, and I'm like, yes, it costs a good chunk of change, but like, it made a huge impact. And I think like if our whole society was based like that, in public spaces. Like, it would just make people feel welcome. Like, I am the not so nice person that if I can't get into your store, I'm not coming to your store and spending my money. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You're missing a whole customer base. And trust me, we like to shop.
I just think that you're missing out, like you said, on a big customer base. And also that, like, if you do something that makes people feel included, they're more likely to want to add value back to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So those I know it's a small thing, costs a lot. It's a small thing to make a difference for a lot of people. So
Absolutely.
It's wild.
yeah. Melissa, do you have any questions on your mind you want to ask? I feel like I always take over our conversations.
No, I'm just like, I'm feeling like I'm having one of those moments, and I hope this is okay to say, I'm having one of those moments where I'm feeling immense gratitude, and also I'm feeling a little fired up.
Welcome to my life.
I just, like, when you said the thing about going on your porch, that to me is like, it falls under the can do stuff. Like, that kind of, we should just, like, I'm not being eloquent at all. I just think that if you can just open your door and sit on your porch, you should feel some immense gratitude that you can do that. And the fact that you had to wait so long to do that is, and I'm happy for you that you do get to, like, I'm happy that you like, it's one of those things that I would have never thought about. The front door. We think about businesses. We think about community. I've never thought about your home front door before. Of course.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense. Like, makes so much sense.
This is exactly why I want to, like, share my story. And, like, there's probably some moments where when I do share some of it, I'm a little bit blunt and it might come off a little harsh. But it's just like, I've lived 40 years of this where, like, even I think it was last Thanksgiving. So I've lived 40 years of my life where, like, I have never gone over to my girlfriend's house for, like, dinner because their home is not accessible. So it's always like they're coming to my house. And I just think, like, in a world where there's, like, a lot of crazy, chaotic things that are maybe a little bit more out of our reach of controlling, like, we can change things in the sense of just, like, creating an accessible world, but then also just having some gratitude for, like, the simple little things that you can do, like going in and out of your house freely, or, like, doing your laundry, or chasing after your kids, or whatever that might look like. So in those hard moments of, like, oh, I got to go to the gym this morning, I'm like, I would love to be able to go to the gym, right? And so I want people to have this moment of where they kind of get a little speechless of, like, how simple it is, the fact that I just wanted to be able to get in and out of my house on my own without needing to ask for help, and then having that awareness and putting that into your life on the daily basis, on those moments where you struggle to do a task that you probably have done 1,000 times, but it's annoying to you. So
100%. 100%. I love that so much. And you know what else I was just thinking was, like, this also is more motivation for those that can help, for those that can put your money where your mouth is, you know, like Sammy and I, when we were talking to Jessica Jansen, we were saying how we've never been to an event that where the money is going, there's such a tangible evidence of the difference it's making. And that just happened in this conversation too. Like, the door that was funded with Love for Lewiston, this is like tangible evidence of how powerful it is when community gets together and puts their money into a cause like this. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's one of these things, we can see it, we can feel it. It's such a difference, and it's so inspiring and motivating, because, you know, we want to make those differences for the people in our communities.
Yeah.
And beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
That is actually like really truly one of the things that I do love about Love for Lewiston is they do a really good job of like sharing the tangible effects. And like, is it going into groundbreaking research? No, but there's already hundreds and thousands of dollars going into that. And that's the other thing I love about it is like most of our day-to-day tasks are a bit of a struggle. And so if that means going into physiotherapy or getting massages or assistive devices that help to make our lives easier, like a simple button and an automatic door was game changing, which sounds so silly and so small, but it was game changing for my life. That's what makes that like tangible. Like I we know that research is working and that medications and treatments are being created. That's great. But like this is helping me get through the day to day because the future and how these treatments are going to affect me are still very unknown. And so why not give people the opportunity to like live their best life on the day to day? And that's really a powerful thing and why I love the Love for Lewiston Foundation. So, and why I agree. I think more people spend money on silly things. So sometimes if you're going to spend it on the silly things, find a silent auction and support it because it's you getting something and then also benefiting and changing somebody's life drastically. So yeah.
I also think that about making money on silly things. Like if you can make money on something small, you can probably give a small portion of the money you made to another good cause. It doesn't. That's the thing that I believe. Anyways, I think that's a really good message, Candice. Thanks for sharing that. I want to because you were saying you feel like it's so important for people to get the perspective on their life, to get perspective on these things that are really simple to do. That you want people to be grateful for these little things. You can totally say no to this question if you want to, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to walk us through what a day in the life of Candice looks like. Like what things are you able to do completely on your own, and what things do you need help with, or little bit of help, but maybe not all the help.
Yeah, no, I'm an open book. One, there's a reel on my Instagram page that you can watch that shows like my morning routine. But typically for me, my days start out, I have someone that has to come and get me up and out of bed. So right from like the morning when I open my eyes is when I start to need help. So I do have a ceiling track that they use to help like lift me to make it easier on their body and mine. So they come, they help me get up, go to the bathroom, have a shower, get dried off. I can go into real detail for this. Like it's a lot of tasks, but again, normal to me, probably normal to you. Same system. It's just somebody's going to be doing it for you. So help me get dried off. Then it's a matter of like getting dressed. From there, I go and brush my hair. I need help to blow dry it, style it. Brushing my teeth, I need help like getting the toothbrush, the toothpaste ready, the glass, so I can reach it, but I can still, so far so good, brush my teeth myself. So that's a good thing. Then for kind of the rest of my morning looks like they help me like now they help me take my treatment medication, make me my cup of coffee and kind of just set me up for the day. And like one thing I think is important about my day to day is like I love people, but I also really like my own space. And so it's really hard to know that throughout the day you need help doing things, but I don't want like somebody always here. And so I have figured out ways to like set up my day where like I can still be home for a few hours by myself if I need to be, just because I need that for my sanity. So then usually it's like I just set out like a few drinks, a few snacks, and then depending on the day, obviously, I either have somebody come back or I used to live at home with my parents. And so if my mom's home, she helps me make whatever I need for lunch. If it's a day where I need to like go to meetings or appointments or whatever that might look like, I have a roster of caregivers that I book because I'm not able to drive myself. So they come, I have a wheelchair accessible SUV and they drive me to where I need to be. Come back again. My mom usually cooks supper, although like I'm a big fan of the I'm like, do I plug them? Like Chef's Plate or those kind of things,
Mm.
those meal delivery systems, because it makes me feel like I'm kind of contributing to supper because I'm not able to really do any part of cooking. So I order them, and then I read the recipe to my mom and kind of guide her through, or if it's a caregiver here that time, like they'll help me do it. So it's kind of like a way I can still be involved in supper time, but then still need the help that I need to make it happen. My nights are pretty chill for the most part. I think that's what happens when you turn 40. Um, and then at the night, I have again, either caregivers come in or my parents will help me. So they come in, help me get changed and washed up for bed. I am still able to like take my own meds other than the current treatment because you have to lift the bottle and pull a syringe out of it. But like I take all my own pills and everything by myself. And then yeah, they help me hook up, like I sleep with a BiPAP machine. So that I've actually had that since I was like 20. And so basically, your lungs are a muscle. So by the time I've gone throughout the day of breathing, my muscles are all overly tired. And so I was going through this phase where I was like having headaches and tiredness and all the time. And so that's when I got the BiPAP machine. So I sleep with that every night, and it just allows my body to go into like full rest, but I still take deep full breaths. And so they help me hook up all that, get comfy in bed. And I think that's another moment I'm like, if it wasn't weird, I would record myself sleeping or going to bed. It's a little weird for me still sometimes, but like I don't roll over, like I don't move in the night. I sleep in one position from like 10 o'clock ish, and then my dad's up in the morning, so around 6 he'll come and roll me over before he goes to work. And I'm not like laying there in agony or pain or anything. If I need rolled over, I can call for help, but like it's like as simple as like adjusting my head or like lifting your butt a little, or like right now it's so hot you just want to roll over because you're sweaty, and I just don't, usually because I'm too tired to call for help, and it's not that important. But I think it's those little things that like people don't think of, like just moving around in your bed freely. So you need help with that. Yeah. And so that's kind of like a real fast drift through my day. But yeah, again, it's gotten a little bit more where I've needed more help and more assistance, which is kind of like a little bit of a mental struggle for me. And I think been the hardest part of it all, because I've been as like independent as I could and whatnot. And I used to be able to like even get a drink out of the fridge by myself. And now I can't do that. So yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Candisse.
Yeah.
How you said just now when you were speaking, and you said earlier that it's just recently that you weren't able to do your own makeup and hair and get a drink out of the fridge. How recent is that? Like, what does that?
My hair and makeup probably the last like 3 years. Actually, to be honest, it's all kind of been in that same range, like that 2 to 3 year mark. Yeah, where just those things are like, and there are things that like I could do and now I can't do. Whereas like something like something like brushing my teeth, it's still a bit of a struggle. Like by the time I'm done, I'm like, okay, I don't know this for sure, but I relate it to like when somebody goes and does a really good arm workout at the gym from lifting weights and your arms are tired and kind of burning. That's what my arms feel like after just the simple task of brushing my teeth. Wow. But I can still do it. So
wow.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Candisse.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember seeing these videos and these like reels a long time ago, and they were like, you know, a wife making her husband learn what it's like to be 9 months pregnant, like make him strap on like something really heavy on his stomach, and you have to wear it for like 48 hours or something to like get an idea of what it's like to be pregnant. I'm like, you know, it would be an interesting thing to make people do that in a wheelchair, and also with the like, okay, if the amount of weight that you can lift is 5 pounds, the person that's going through this can't lift more than 5 pounds. Anything that requires more than like 2 minutes of effort or 5 pounds of weight, you have to call for help to do. It would be like a massive perspective shift, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've actually thought of like doing something like that. Just, I don't know if people would do it for fun, but we'll see. We'll just sweet talk them. Maybe get some good prizes or something. But I recently shared again a reel, so you can check it out on my page, where I had to go and do this series of tests. And it was even like a little bit eye-opening to me. So one of the tests was like, there was this little 200-gram weight, and I had to like pick it up and move it from like one circle to another. And ideally they wanted me to do it like one hand, no support, and I like couldn't do it. So like that's that perspective, because then I'm trying to think like, does a can of pop even weigh 200 grams? And I think my dad was at the appointment with me, and he's like, no, this tiny little weight that was like 2 inches big was heavier than a can of pop. And so, yeah, it was like that. Like, and then I could slide it, but I couldn't lift it like they wanted me to. And so I've thought of doing that too. I think it would be a really good like SMA awareness, or just like any sort of muscle disease awareness of like how tiring it can be. And then we should just do it with a bunch of gym junkies.
Oh yeah.
Right? Where they're like, oh yeah, I'm strong and I got muscles. And we're like, okay, wear these like 40-pound weights on your wrists or something like that, right? Be very eye-opening. Yeah.
Totally. Like to somehow figure out what the translation would be, like what that feels like to you, what it would be, you know, like you just said, 40 pound, like put this 40-pound weight on your wrist and see.
Yeah, your wrists and your ankles, and pick up a cup till you drink it all or something. Like it's something that simple, like you feel the burnout fast. So yeah.
Oh, that would be so fascinating.
We should brainstorm this and do that. We should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm game.
Candice, if there was one message that you could say, maybe whether it's to the world or to the SMA community today, what is something maybe that's on your heart that you would like to share?
I think again, it's just my message of at all times, really. So when you are having those like hard moments in the day, whether they're big or small or in the middle, just know that like you can do it. It might take you longer than you think. It might take you more time than you think. But if you are really like committed to doing it and needing to get it done, the fact that you complete it whenever you complete it is still a win. Because there's so many of us out there that would be so thrilled to just do the simple day-to-day tasks without struggle. So, yeah.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Candice. Melissa, do you have any other questions?
No, I was just going to say you took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say that's beautiful. And we're so grateful for you to share your time and your energy with us today. And we've loved just like being able to dive in and have this conversation with you. We're so excited about this mini series. Like all these conversations is just, we're excited to do a small part in just having conversation and putting conversations out there. We're just so grateful for you to spend your time with us today. So thank you for your openness and your Candisee. Is that the right word? Candisee?
We'll go with it.
Thank you for being candid.
I just want to say thank you guys for having me, and thank you for like taking the time to take August and make it August SMA Awareness Month, because to you guys it might seem small, but like just, 5 people sit and listen to every series or whatever those numbers might look like for you guys, it does make a difference, and it does help spread awareness. And I think you guys do a really amazing job when you pick these charities of choice. I think you do a great job of sharing the right messages and sharing people's stories. And so I'm just really grateful for the opportunity and for meeting you both. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Candice. We honestly do feel like it's the least we could do. We feel very much like we're not doing very much at all. It is the least we can do. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.